chains, right? So they gave it to somebody who does a subcontract. Finally, it was given to a village, and a child was actually sitting down and doing it. And NGO called this as a child labor. The complete chain of products got banned. Why? They did not ascertain the risk of who can influence what you need to do. The two examples I'm trying to tell you is you need to look at list from what is the impact it can have on you. Not necessarily in terms of what is it today and how is it going to be. Yeah. What is the business impact of the risk, and am I broad basing it? How much am I broad basing it? So I'll give you and now let's come back to an example that we had in one of the engagements which I was also directly responsible for. We run for one of the engagements we run a test environment management service. Right? So we do it fairly well, and we had a stakeholder change. All 4 levels of the organization changed. The CEO, CIO, COO, and the director level. All 4 changed, which means your complete relationship had to be rebuilt. Everybody had changed. So at the same time, TCS was making a very strong pitch. We were not there with a new product on TIMS. They had a new platform. I don't know what they call it, but there's a white paper on it. They came up with a platform. Right? Now, theoretically, there was no noise on delivery which should have got us worried. Right? But there was a big potential opportunity that because of a relationship gap and a threat from a competitor, you could have a market risk. So we logged that higher RPN risk to say, you need to deal with this. Because downstream, you could have an LD loss. So you have to look at risk from all these perspectives, not necessarily just the operations that you do. So if you're a service delivery manager, your service is across. How do you also protect your service? And do you see market threats coming in? You may not have all these insights, but this is where your vertical, your front-facing guys, your ICMs will do it. And what do? Do any of the on-site guys participate in your PMR? No. So how do you get this market-facing also? So this is where I think we need to also broad base it and get the views. Same way as we went through in the service delivery, risk can also evolve from being reactive to being predictive or preventive. It depends upon the maturity of your current engagement in terms of risk appetite. Reactive ones is after it's most of what you do today in your risk register where they become issue. It's all reactive. It's already happened. What do I do now? It's all about action plans. So if you read the mitigation, I've created an action plan for this. I'm going to replace this guy. It's all action plan based, right? Because it's all reactive. Proactive is when you anticipate something will happen, right? And then you have started putting some preventive measures. It may still happen, but you have mitigated the risk. Now the example which I told you on the Lloyd's case, which is the environmental assessment, was more proactive. It did not happen, but I took a rear guard action so that we could do some actions to proactively manage it if it did happen. Predictive is looking forward into the future. Where is the industry headed? Where is the organization headed? Where is my service headed? Will they converge? Do I have a risk? All 3 levels should be articulated if you really want to successfully sustain your service. Okay, so we talked about this in a minute. How do we make risk a competitive advantage? If you start looking at it from the other side, the car example. Can I look at risk as things which allow me to go faster? So if you take risk as something which doesn't stop you but allow you to go faster, then you're converting risk into a competitive advantage by moving risk into opportunities. So as a service delivery manager, you should also look at how am I able to do that effectively? How am I able to bring in the competitive advantage to risk? So every risk that you look at, and when you try and mitigate the risk, see whether you can create an opportunity for the future.
this particular example, just to share my experience, we had the risk actually when we started an engagement. Then there is a spin the tool section. We use the customer tool section. The customer tool was not title based, and it had into its own pros and cons. So when we went into the engagement, or rather when we started the transition, we understood that it doesn't support blah 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 all this thing. We said like this is a risk that we are going to. Parallel, I started out working with the PE teams and the on-target teams actually. And as we speak, we have given a proposal to the customer, and customer, in principle, have agreed, but commercial negotiations are going on.
That is fine. Yeah. So you can always as a scary proposition. If you flip it through, it becomes an interesting proposition. And you have to somehow bring that culture into the minds of not just us, but also the layer below, so that they start seeing this. So associated with risk is also a very important aspect that we tend to foresee is service continuity. It is a lot more, like we are broad-based in this, it is also a lot more broad-based than DR and BCP. It goes back to this picture. You have to look at where are you running your BCP. Here, here, here. So unless you are able to align, because again in a disaster or a business continuity scenario, no business will want all their services to work. They only want their platinum to work. But if you have devised a business strategy but it doesn't cater for your platinum, you have a problem. So you say I've got a dual center strategy. But does the dual center strategy support your platinum? Do you have enough sizing in the dual center strategy to support your platinum? If the dual center strategy requires minute by minute monitoring, do you really have a hot arrangement? Right? So it can't again be a tick in the box of compliance to say I've done a 6-monthly BCP drill, I'm fine. How many of you are from Chennai? Okay, we had the MEPS. How many of you from MEPS? Most of you? We had this MEPS bomb scare, right? About a month ago. Nothing happened out of it, right? Now, it is practically a lot lucky that none of the projects there, which was there at that particular point of time, really had a hot arrangement. Because it took you more than an hour to get from MEPS to outside the gate. Because we weren't prepared. What we did not anticipate is that once police had cordoned off that area, they would not allow any vehicles to enter. So the cabs couldn't come in. The biggest delay there was, this is what I heard, I was not there. What I heard is that the cabs, because the gates got sealed, right? The cabs couldn't come in, and it's almost a kilometer from where our office is to get to the gate. Yes. So even if the guys had to walk, it took them so much of time to catch a cab because the cab wouldn't come in. One example. You know what British Airways has got? Heathrow Terminal 5 is all British Airways, right? Big hype. And then, but they couldn't start on the day they promised, and that became a huge disaster. You know
embarrassment.
Yeah?
An embarrassment.
A big embarrassment and a huge, and you know why? They hadn't ascertained the parking system. They had planned everything else, but they hadn't got the parking system. Right? Which meant a huge problem on the first day, that they couldn't get vehicles and there was a chaos that they couldn't, and they had to stop it until they streamlined the parking system. It was not the aircraft, it was not the aircraft, it was not the runway, it was not the policies, it was not the air traffic control, it was the parking. So sometimes in service continuity, there is a lot more than your actual service. So these two examples I told you, there was nothing to do with the service. But I couldn't transport a physical guy up to the gate. Imagine if that your service was running minute by minute monitoring. What would you do? If you didn't have a standard, we would send the somebody to Navalur to take you for an hour. So service continuity is another thing that you have to broad-base. And really have to understand which services need continuity, why do we need continuity, how do we run with continuity. Okay. I think there is a slide which sort of gives you there's a picture so that you can conceptualize this, right? This is how the normal flow goes, right? you take 3 inputs to determine your risk, your assets, which could include your people, your threats, which I talked about, market risk, reputational risk, whatever that can happen external facing, or your vulnerabilities. And all 3 should feature into your broad level risk planning. Your broad level risk planning should lead to your continuity planning and your countermeasures. Yeah. Make sense? Tell me guys if you need more theory.